Well, many of the people in the audience probably are aware of what Hyon is and who you are, but maybe you could give a little bit of an introduction to your organization structure and what it is that Hyon does and who's involved.
Thank you. Absolutely. So Hyon was formed as a joint venture company. That means there are three companies that do not originally have anything in common, but they formed us. And the reason for that is that they really want to have a one-stop shopping place for integrated through the value chain solutions for hydrogen and fuel cells.
When you say integrated hydrogen, what does that mean? Like, can you explain that to some of the people in the audience that aren't familiar with that?
Exactly. So we do basically two things, which I think you will see more and more of in the industry coming. So we are kind of blending the core products of the owners that we have. So that's one thing, that we're fitting it together and making a one-stop solution. But also we are kind of making total turnkey solutions ready to kind of buy and put in place of your equipment where you need it. For instance, a ship.
Okay. When you say turnkey solutions, and we know that today's subject is maritime hydrogen projects, can you maybe explain what's going on in Norway in terms of environmental challenges and why you are focusing specifically on maritime solutions?
Yeah. So there are a couple of reasons why maritime is really in focus. Firstly, it's really a industry where there are huge power needs. And secondly, there's an industry with enormous kind of need to clean up. There will be, and there is also a lot going on the requirements. Environmental requirements coming up both internationally, regionally in EU, and locally in geographical areas like fjords in Norway as such. Yeah.
When you say environmental requirements, though, what does it mean? What are the targets for Norway, and when are the dates? And what does that mean for all of the suppliers and the industry and the nation as a whole? What are these environmental targets?
Well, you know, there's so much thing going on there, so it will be a presentation by itself to really go through all the legislation and all the requirements coming up. But the biggest one right now is that from 2020, all ships going worldwide will have to use fuels with maximum sulfur limits of 0.5. And that's a drastic thing, because today the average is 2.7. So that's just one thing. But then they will have regional things in EU, you will have a lot of requirements. And in Norway specifically, this has become an issue because there will be, for instance, the Norwegian Public Road Administration, who operates a lot of ferries, they require that their new licenses is going to be zero emission. So that has fed a lot of work and a big wave on batteries. So 3 years ago, there was only one vessel operating called Ampere. That was the first fully electric vessel with batteries. 2021, we will have 60 vessels with batteries on the Norwegian coast.
That's a lot of growth. And in terms of the batteries, what does that mean for hydrogen fuel cells, though,
exactly.
in your projects? You've got 2 pilot projects underway. Do you want to maybe tell the audience about Project ZEF?
Thank you, and that's good that you said that, because that's feeding off a lot of interest in fuel cells, because clearly battery can do only so much. And there is, both in terms of weight and size and cost, batteries come to an end, and that's why shipping is so interesting for fuel cells and hydrogen, because we really need large power consumptions and large energy needs. So you'll see now that there are hydrogen and fuel cells coming on stream for vessels. So specifically Hyon as such, my company, is involved in 2 projects with national government and support. One is a short sea shipping, so that's a container vessel. This one specifically will go between Poland and Norway along the Swedish west coast. So that will be a short sea shipping container vessel with fuel cells and hydrogen. That's a very interesting kind of an integrated solution where you will have batteries, you will have diesel electric system, and fuel cell and hydrogen all together. The partners there are the company called Samskip, which is a major mover of goods in the northern Europe, and the Wilhelmsen shipping company, Hyon, Flow Change, and Kalmar, electric trucks and cargo lifting equipment. The other product is ZEF. That's a high-speed ferry. So that will be transporting up to 300 people, going more than 30 knots, fully hydrogen as well. That will be on the west coast. This will be between Trondheim and Kristiansund, for those who know that part of the area.
So through the tight fjords of Norway.
Yeah.
And when is that anticipated to be in operation? Like when can people actually go and take a ride on this ferry?
Both these vessels are planned being in operation 2022. And the good thing here is that this is coming from kind of a blend of push and pull in the industry. So the push is the requirements for being environmental sound, requirements for cutting emissions and be zero emission. And the pull is coming from the Norwegian governmental funding schemes that work very well with the industry, so that we actually have full support, part funding, all the way from planning through construction, guaranteed in a way, through what is called Pilot E scheme.
And what percentage of the project is funded from them?
Again, please.
What percentage of the project is funded by the government?
For instance, in the construction phase, the extra cost for the fuel cell and hydrogen, not the vessel itself, but all the extra cost is funded 50% by the government.
And these are vessels that you are refitting or building from scratch?
No, all this will be new vessels.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then regarding your other project, Sea Shuttle, can you maybe explain a little bit about that and why that's an important shift in the industry, what that means for the industry in terms of environment, what it could mean to manufacturers and industry in terms of potential like energy saving and cost saving long term?
So we're looking at a fuel cell will have, on a part operation, it has an efficiency of 60%. What PowerCell, my company, does is that they guarantee 50% efficiency at the end of lifetime. So fuel cells, just like all other kind of machinery, have degradation through operation. But that's quite small compared to normal machinery and very small compared to batteries, who really degrades a lot. So that's why they say that end of lifetime, which is 30,000 hours for a marine cycle, is 50% efficiency. So moving from oil to hydrogen really is zero emission. Hydrogen needs, of course, to be produced from a renewable source. And we see so much coming on stream now with wind and sun, and also hydro to some extent, but the wind and sun sector, solar. So we think there will be an abundance of energy in the future. And also coming from the fact that wind is now moving offshore. So this is really blending well with the hydrogen society coming on stream.
When you say future, what do you mean in terms of, what is the timeline for that? I know we talked about the targets. I know that there are a lot of challenges in making a lot of this deployable, one of them being infrastructure. So can we talk about the infrastructure currently in Norway, what's going on presently, and then also where you guys need to make a shift to reach those targets and what needs to happen?
There is a tremendous challenge ahead of us. What we're really trying to do is to do two things at the same time. We are lifting both the demand, so we are lifting kind of projects and ships going on with hydrogen, and at the same time you're lifting a production capacity in hydrogen. So, and in order to get this really moving, you need to lift large scale, because you need large scale production in order to get the cost down. So you're lifting all these things at the same time, very high. That's a big challenge, but we are doing our best to get that around. So there's quite a lot going on right now. I would say, for instance, last week there was issued a new governmental funding scheme for that, partly funded again, 12 million euro being funded for developing the infrastructure around this. Not developing everything, but doing all the integration and all the development of the technology and all the feasibility studies and all these needs and the political work in order to raise this.
So there's the infrastructure requirements in terms of the actual development and construction of these vessels and of the sea shuttles. But what about the infrastructure instead of fueling stations? How does that work? These are passenger ferries that are going up the fjord. How are they going to be fueled, and where are those stations currently, and what needs to happen up the fjords to make sure that they're
That's a very
usable?
good question. So what we're looking at is, of course, large-scale shipping industry. Clearly, liquid hydrogen is a thing because there is so much, the larger volumes. But we see that it's cheaper, simpler, and less energy need in doing the compressed thing. So we think compressed will really be a good thing for ferries, very short shipping going on fixed routes where you can put up the infrastructure for that. We think if you really look at large scale, liquid hydrogen will come for the transatlantic routes and the larger cruise vessels and all this. And what we're doing now, I think that we're kind of finding out exactly how this development should take place, how this is going to actually become alive. But this is investigated now. There are funding clear. The industry is there to really come up with the solutions. Of course, large players like oil companies like Equinor is into this game. So I think a couple of years from now, I think we really will have a better and clear strategy on how this is going to be built.
Great. Well, that's really interesting, especially given it's a passenger ferry in terms of the fueling requirements. Like, how many stations need to be up the fjord for it, in theory, to be operational? Is it just one at kind of the loading zone, or are you going to have stations set along the coast?
It's a little bit mixed to what I just said about liquid or compressed hydrogen, clearly. If you go for liquid, the mass, the large scale and the economy of scale needs there really manifest a kind of central production. Of course, that can be distributed to kind of filling places. If you go for compressed, the beauty of that is that you are dynamic and you can scale it very easily. So you can start off with stranded power, with excess power, and you can build a small station that are producing hydrogen, compressing it, and making a filling station, which could make you kind of very easily come to a viable cost. Great.
So I know that your focus primarily is obviously getting these vessels in construction and doing the sea charger. Sea shuttle, pardon me. When you are finished with this stuff, what is your next plan? I know we've talked about a couple of projects that are upcoming. Can you share any of those with the audience of like what they can expect to see from you in the next year or so?
We think definitely that the fish farming and aquaculture will be a place to go. There will be kind of blended needs there where not only the hydrogen, but you will need oxygen as well, and you can use the heat very easily. Clearly, and we also see Hyon is already now in construction and delivering to the land-based industry. For instance, there is schools, public schools, where they have solar power, and they can then store that solar power and use it in wintertime, actually. So we're putting the sun and the solar into the tank. And then we are delivering these kind of systems, turnkey, complete systems, which we see more and more demand for.
Okay, so maritime is just one specific focus, but you do have other market applications
Absolutely.
And turnkey solutions to offer. Okay, if anyone is interested in asking questions, I'm going to open this to the floor. If anyone has any questions at all. Anybody? No? Okay, if you think of your own questions that you want to go and ask Tomas on your own accord, you can go visit them at booth B60. His whole team is there. They've got a booth right over here in the corner. I'm going to thank you for your time and introduce, next up, we're going to be speaking with Head of Hydrogen Solutions, Marcus Bachmeier from Lind, and the subject matter is Let's Go Exponential. And that should be happening fairly shortly, so stick around and we'll get you set up there. Enjoy.